We'll go to Furkan next. Again, just
I
love
loved it.
I love his
I
charm.
loved it.
I love everything about him. So first off, his quote on Ben, quote, "I love Ben. I love playing with him on the court. He is still a part of us. He is still a Sixer. So I hope everything is going to be well for him." And then one more on Ben was, quote, "I just wish him a healthy and good life. I'm on his back," which just gotta love
So
it.
funny.
Yeah, gotta love it. And then another awesome thing is they talked about the hype video by Furkan, which was
Yeah.
absolutely electric. And his comments on that were, "My team in Turkey did a good job." And then, quote, "I'm happy about the video. I watched the video a lot." But just lovable. Just
Yeah.
absolutely love Furkan. It's kind of more of a happy to have him back as a morale thing than I don't know how much on court growth I still see at this point, but I think he does his job well. He knows his role, and I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, dude, I mean, we're huge Furkan guys here. Pick Swap Pod is very much into Furkan as a player, and he's such a good guy, and that was hilarious, like so unintentionally funny throughout that entire thing, and just saying that like he loved the video and saying how much he loved Ben. Like it was just a very like I was like, nice, like we're back, like
Yeah.
the Furkan's here. Like it was very nice to see him back and him excited to be back with the Sixers because I feel like I feel like he deserves it a little bit to be back. And he's such like, I mean, he wasn't good in the playoffs. He was just very like, meh. But he's a very good regular season player. I think as a rotational piece, he's pretty valuable. And like, there was some growth last year. There was like
For sure.
a little bit of extending his game and doing a little bit more on the dribble and getting to the rim a little bit. And he is capable of doing that. So again, I think like we talked about, there's not really that next man up mentality as much, but it's more of like everyone is going to get to do a little bit more. So it's either do it now or forever hold your peace. So Furkan could be another guy that I see stepping up a little bit and doing a little bit more, but I expect him to be the same old Furkan, killing everyone on the pump fakes, a little bit of dunks here and there, which I love a Furkan dunk. And like, he's just a very lovable guy, and I'm very happy that he's back.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any real specific goals, just continue to make strides defensively. And I also feel like there could be
Yeah.
a Furkan just hot streak coming. I feel like there hasn't
Yeah.
been a time where he's just been absolutely red hot for several games in a
Yeah.
while. So I think one of those during the season will be awesome to see.
Absolutely.
To transition to Shake Milton. So Shake talked about he prioritized defense this offseason, and about that he said, quote, "I want to be on the court when it matters most." And he said he also focused on threes and adding muscle. So what did you get from Shake?
First thing was the damn, I look pretty swole. That was
Yeah,
funny from him. I was very intrigued by Shake's press conference because it was like he seemed locked in. And like you don't hear too much from Shake very often, and you don't like he's just not he's not the first guy that everyone's like, "Oh, let's talk to Shake." So it wasn't very much like it wasn't a crazy thing or anything, but he just seemed very focused, and he seemed to have a pretty good goal in mind. And it's been such a roller coaster ride with Shake. At first being a nobody, you expect nothing from him. He has that little, the outburst against LA and that whole thing, and the end of that season where it was like, oh, Shake might be very important to this team. And then there was last year where it's like sixth man of the year and then not getting minutes at all. Like it's just been this up and down for him, and it's as good as I think he is, I don't know where he falls in this rotation, and it's so difficult to know what he's going to be like going forward. And maybe there's a Shake comeback in the works, but I really don't know. So I'm excited for Shake. I'm excited to see like the beginning of this season is like I think it's going to be very important and very fun, and very telling of what the rest of the year looks like. But I think he's a guy that is, I think it's clear to him too that it's your spot to lose at this point. I feel like for Shake, like if he isn't playing well, there are guys behind him ready to take that spot over. So, if he doesn't play well, I think we see Isaiah Joe a little bit more. I think we see some other guys a little bit more. But if he does play well, I think Shake could be a prominent part of this team.
yeah. I think last year, by the standards we kind of put for him, was a pretty poor
Yeah.
year for Shake. So he averaged 13 points. I still think there's more in just being like a pop off the bench scorer that he can provide, and I think that's going to be his role again, at least to start. So my goal for him is 15 plus points per game, which I think that's reasonable. That's two more than he averaged last year in what was a
Yeah.
bad year. It's still not a terrible year, but I think he's capable of more. So I'm excited. I hope Shake bounces back and comes back to being the player that we thought he could be.
Yeah,
Uh,
and the thing is, sorry, just one more thing. Like, he is he has the physical qualities of a good defender.
for
Like
sure.
such long arms, and if he does
Wingspan.
get stronger, he has been thin, like a smaller frame, but like he definitely does has the physical capabilities of being a solid defender. So like when you think about it in a guy like we talked about Danny Green and his maybe him, not playing so much or being the top defender, like we don't want to see that.
Yeah.
So whether it's Matisse, who we'll get to him obviously, but like doesn't have as much of an offensive game as Shake. But Shake obviously is not the defender that Matisse is, and there aren't many players in the league that are. But if he could be a good quality defender, and if he's able to just like, I think all he needs to do is kind of just like condense his game most of the times. Like I think when he gets in trouble and when he starts playing poorly is when he tries to do too much or is like trying to be like, oh, I need to do something crazy. It's my time to be an ISO scorer. Like if he can work himself out of that and stay condensed, I think Shake has the chance to be in the rotation or even in the game's late game.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we'll go to Georges Niang. So, quote by him, quote, the main reason I'm here is I was able to have a conversation with Doc Rivers during free agency. Doc also referred to him as the silent pickup that he believed will help. Niang also echoed a common phrase from Tyrese Maxey, the quote, getting 1% better every day. He said he believes he can play the small ball five. And also when talking about Philly fans in general, he said, quote, I'm a Northeast kid, so I know how the city of Philadelphia works. I'm focused on how I can make this team better. So cool. All great outlooks from Niang. I definitely think he's going to turn into a fan favorite kind of guy. And I love him here. I think he's Mike Scott plus, which is all we can ask for.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Niang. I think he's going to be a perfect fit. Um, I mean, like, think about it. Like, think about him alongside Joel Embiid, and like, if that's your four, a guy that's shooting 40% from anywhere, like beyond the arc, it's very dangerous. And he can play four, maybe he can play the five. And I think that was a disappointing part about what Doc said is that there was kind of a plan to play Ben with him, and that would have been a very good fit. But even just thinking about him with this team and Joel Embiid and even the second unit, um, like having a guy like Matisse who's not a great shooter, but your four or your five is shooting 40% from beyond the arc, like that is never ever a bad thing. So I'm very excited for his fit here, and he seems like a very good quality guy and another good veteran presence in the locker room.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super happy with what he brings. He seems genuinely excited to play next to
Yeah,
Joel Embiid, which I think is very cool. And he's a little bit undersized for kind of the role I think we have kind of pinpointed him as. So I wouldn't be surprised if we even go a little bigger and play him at the three at times, which I'm
yeah,
also cool with because he's just an objectively good shooter. And then
yeah,
for my goal for him, I'm just want a 40+% from three this year, which that sounds like a lot, but he's a 40.4% 3-point shooter in his career. He shot 42.5% last year on 4.1 attempts, and he should be able to do that. But people forget how to shoot when they come to Philly pretty often, so you never know.
yeah. I mean, he just has to be himself, really. I
Yeah,
think he has to just come in here and like maybe through the first couple games, it's a little bit rusty here or there, but I think just getting in here early in camp, getting started, and just you know carving himself out a role and just doing what he does. No one's asking him to do more than just be himself, be what he's advertised as. So I think he'll be very good.
yeah, absolutely. Matisse Thybulle. So first off, the first question on Ben, his reply to that was, or if it would be like a distraction to the team, he said, "quote It's as much of a distraction as you guys want it to be." And then, obviously, I love Matisse, but and maybe things were just a little too stressful for him, but he was a little more snippier for this media day than he usually is, and especially to a friend of the podcast, Austin Krell, with his
Yeah.
question going back there. But still love from Matisse. He spoke very highly of his time with the Olympics. He talked about like his different usage there and the confidence that went along with that, which I thought was very cool. And what are your thoughts on your guy?
Yeah, I don't obviously no disrespect to Krell. I thought he was very good on the pod, but that was like very funny to me. Like
Yeah,
he seems so fed up with it, and I don't know if you listened to his podcast with JJ Redick that he did last week, but that
I
was
think
like
JJ's rubbing off on him a little bit.
JJ is rubbing off on him a little bit. JJ's a dick. JJ, I loved Redick while he was here, but he just is kind of a dick, and maybe that maybe you need a little bit more of that with Matisse.
True.
It could help him a little bit, but I mean, Matisse is himself. There's with what we saw in the Olympics, I think there is a lot more to him than what we see. And again, with the potential play out of this and who's going to play at what times, like I think again, Matisse's ability and what he puts out on the floor is up to him. And if like, I think Doc needs to use him in the right way. I will be very upset. And like, Doc has a lot to prove to me personally. Not that that means too much, but like, as a coach, he has a lot to prove in terms of how he uses these guys. Because if we see what Matisse was able to do in the Olympics, and not in the Olympics that like he's playing against scrubs, like it wasn't like he was at a pro-am and it's like, oh, Matisse scored 30 in a pro-am. Like that's expected.
Mhm.
He was playing against the best teams in the world. He did it against the United States team. He did it against France. Like, this is a guy that went out as obviously a more prominent offensive part of what they were doing with the Boomers. But like, dude, he has the ability to really impact the game on both ends of the floor. Obviously, defensively, it's going to be there, but offensively, he needs to not be a minus. Like, that's really the biggest thing. He needs to not just be, someone that you don't care or worry about at all. Let him be a disruptor. Let him get to the rim. Let him cut to the basket. Like, if I'm not seeing that early on, that is very indicative of what Doc Rivers is as a coach.
Yeah, there's definitely more to unlock than has been so far with the Sixers that Australia showed. Just his screen and roll ability, his cutting. There's a lot of things there that are to be excited about, and even ball handling and passing, he showed flashes of, which has never been the case with the Sixers. As far as a goal for his role here, the first thing I want to say is just improve discipline on defense. His fouling jump shooters is more of an issue than has been acknowledged, and that's something that he needs to work on.
Yep.
He brought it up himself, which I'm happy to hear that he at least is acknowledging it. And then offensively, uh, I just set it as 34+% from three, which is a very reasonable clip. That's
Yeah.
respectable enough that you have to at least guard him, and that's enough to keep him on the floor. In his 2 years so far, he shot 35.7% the first year and 30.1% last year. So I'd love for that to bounce back a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that all comes again from really him. He gets open shots. Like, he just needs to hit open shots. And again, I think that's something that will come along. And I guess, I mean, I don't have like a specific goal for Matisse. I just want him to be as aggressive offensively as he is defensively. Don't change the aggressiveness level from one end of the floor to the other. Just find a way to get your hands on the ball. And he's so like quick twitch athletic. Like, he can get to the rim at any time and, get him on back cuts, get him just going for offensive rebounds, like anything like that. He has the capability of doing. So I just need to see more of that from him. And like, if he's able to give you, I don't even know, 6 points per game, shooting 35% and doing like just being active offensively, like he's a very different player that provides so much for you.
Definitely. And now a guy I still haven't fully accepted is the 76er, Andre Drummond. Uh, so his first quote I have from him is, quote, "I think Doc was very smart for taking a chance on getting me. I have a lot left to offer." On Joel Embiid specifically, when we're talking about their kind of beef in the past, quote, "We're like Titans. We just clash. We play hard against each other. It's just basketball. What beef can you really have?" So cool that that's kind of putting behind him. He said it was a kind of an unspoken thing between him and Embiid that they haven't really acknowledged. But he also seemed okay with having a smaller role, which I think is the biggest thing that should have been looking for.
Yeah, and I think that that was pretty obvious with him signing here, was him knowing like, Embiid's at least at the very, very least is the second best center in the world. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of us view him as the best center in the world. So he knows that he's not coming in here competing for a starting spot. Like, he knew that, and he wouldn't have signed here if he thought otherwise. Like, so I mean, he's going to be Dwight Howard in Dwight Howard's role, just probably better, better rebounder, and a guy that just doesn't need the ball. Like, and I think that's an important piece to it all. And you kind of thought at the beginning that he would be running with Maxey and those guys. It seems like he probably won't be, but like, as a second unit center, just play defense, don't foul, get rebounds. And, I'd rather be like, I didn't realize that Andre Drummond played last night. Like, that's the kind of role I kind of see him in. And if he's okay with that, if he just wants to play winning basketball and be a silent producer, that's totally fine with me. And if that's his role, then I think that's what he's going to be very good at. So I'm like low key pretty excited about Andre Drummond, which is a very, very weird thing for me to say.
Yeah, very. My goals for him is, first off, just stay in your lane, just do
Yep.
your thing, don't do too much, and then just less than 20 minutes per game, which has never been done in his career. But it concerns me a great deal that Doc Rivers talked about how excited he was to have him, and just I'm concerned that Doc is going to play him far too much, and if him and Embiid ever step on the floor together, I might question my whole
I
belief
quit.
in this franchise. But
Yeah.
But
Well, Doc is a jackass, bro. Like, like he would do something like that. Like, I just like I don't know. Like again, the idea of Andre Drummond to me is very fine. Like he's just
yeah,
very fine here. What what concerns me about basically all of this is the way that Doc is going to use them. So never in a million years should they step on the floor together at the same time. Like really, he shouldn't even have his sweats off if Embiid is on the like if Embiid is playing, he should have towels on the neck. Like he should be on the bench chilling, like not even worried about stepping on the floor until Embiid's calling for a sub. Like there
yeah.
should be no world that they even think about it. And you have other options is the biggest thing. If you really need to play two bigs, Niang's there. Paul Reed is there. Don't think about Drummond. And if you do, I really question it. Like I really, really do.
Yeah, the guy whose growth I guess I'm biggest concerned that it might stunt is Bball Paul. And to talk about him a little bit. So he said his three goals going in this year were to help the Sixers compete for a championship, play in the rookie versus sophomore game during All-Star weekend, and then shoot 45% from three, which is a super high bar, but
Yeah.
maybe he's capable. And then when he was asked about kind of how well liked he's become, his quote was, "It's surreal. I wasn't expecting people to like me that much. Every time I go on social media, they're showing me a lot of love and enthusiasm," which, again, you just absolutely have to love B-Ball Paul. And he also mentioned how motivated that he has been through the work of Tyrese Maxey and Isaiah Joe from last year.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's such a lovable guy, and it's nice to know that there are a lot of characters and personalities on this team that mesh well and play well together. And Maxi already showing that he's a leader in some capacity is really encouraging. So I'm interested to see how many minutes he gets, how he plays in with the Sixers this year because it's hard to tell what he's going to be like. But you know, B-ball Paul is B-ball Paul, and it's going to be interesting to see what his role is like this year because I mean we've been high on him for a while, and he's such an interesting guy. Like if he plays well, the entire city will just like
Love him.
fall. Like they already do love him. Everyone already does kind of like love him, but it's kind of like a quirky like backdoor kind of love thing. It's like you love him for what he is, but if he plays well on top of being that lovable personality, you know, it's going to be hard to dislike him at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And my goals for him is more than 15 minutes per game. He played 6.8 minutes per game last year over 26 games. I just genuinely really want him to be that small ball option. And I think he's good enough. I think he's ready, and I want to see it happen. And now,
Yeah.
last guy, Isaiah Joe. He said he's 100% recovered from his ankle sprain. He prioritized working on ball handling and playmaking this offseason. And quote from him is, quote, "I strive to be the best shooter on the court at all times." Thoughts on Isaiah Joe?
Yeah, I love Isaiah Joe. I think he's an important piece going forward. I just don't really see too much of a role for him this year outside of like the main rotation. It's just going to be difficult to find getting all of these wings in the game behind like Curry, DG, Matisse, Furk, Shake. Like there's just a lot of guys that are kind of lined up in front of him, and there's definitely a niche. There's definitely a need for his abilities, and I think going forward, again, what they've talked about for so long is like we love the core that we have. We love the young core of guys that are coming up, and I think thinking about going forward, he's a very very important piece to them. So. While like, I don't think he's going to be like used all that often this year. I don't think he's undervalued in the franchise.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to overhop Furkan in the rotation, and I think that's on the table at least. My goal for him is 38% plus from deep. He shot 36.8% last year on 2.6 attempts, which is impressive volume for the limited minutes that he produced. And it's tough for given limited minutes, just how off the splits can be, just because there just aren't that much data to go off. So
Yeah.
that could be around, but hopefully Isaiah Joe gets on his feet.
Yeah, and I think he will. I think even if it's not this year, it definitely will be next year. Like it's just hard, you know, when you have I think they have like 14 guys that are very capable of being on an NBA court at any given minute. And that's something that for the regular season is very, very good, but for Doc Rivers in the postseason is very, very bad.
Mhm.
So, it could be a blessing and a curse at times, but I think Isaiah Joe is definitely like if he's the 14th guy on your bench, you're like, oh my gosh, like we are very deep in terms of like playable guys. So